Keaton Wagler has been one of the more polarizing prospects throughout this 2026 NBA draft process. Over his last 16 games, he's averaging 21 points per game, 5 rebounds per game, 5 assists per game, shooting 47% from 3 on 6 attempts, while shooting 79% from the line at 7 free throw attempts per game. In this season in its entirety, he's averaging 18 points per game, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists a night on a 63% true shooting. I've seen some big boards have him as high as 6th. I've seen people rise him into the top 10. And to somebody that has not been on my radar when the collegiate season started, for him to rise up this high into people's big boards, there has to be something worth talking about. He's had big games like 46 points against Purdue, 34 points against Wisconsin, and 28 points against Nebraska. Keaton Wagler looks like he's going to be the NBA's next star, and today we're going to talk all about him. So without further ado, let's get into my Keaton Wagler player evaluation. Now, before we get to the play on the floor, let's talk about who Keaton Wagler actually is. Born February 3rd, 2007, he committed to Illinois on September 18th, 2024, going to Shawnee Mission High School, and was a 4-star recruit. Over his freshman season, he averaged 3 points per game, and jumped to his sophomore season where he averages 11 points per game, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists. As a junior, averaged 12 points per game, 6 rebounds, and 3 assists, all the way up to being a senior, averaging 18 points per game, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists. And throughout his senior year, he gained offers from schools like Wichita State, Illinois University, Minnesota, Southern Illinois, Tulsa, Colorado State, and DePaul. So that leads into the player. There's a lot of intriguing things about Keaton Wagler, some of his strengths and weaknesses. If I look at some of his strengths, I say he has a really good shooting strength, on and off ball ability, pick and roll ball handling, pick and roll playmaking and passing, mismatch attacking, and positional size. And to break some of those things up, Keaton Wagler is one of the best mismatch attackers when we talk about pick and roll on the perimeter. He's forced a lot of switches on the perimeter given his 3-point shooting. Mind you, over this last 16-game stretch, he's shooting 47% on 6 threes a game. His shooting off the dribble and off the catch is completely remarkable. To be able to pull out on the perimeter and go against bigs and attack them on a mismatch and create the right play when getting downhill. And what I mean by positional size, he stands at 6'6". He's been the lead guard for this Illinois team, being pretty much the only guy in the starting lineup who can consistently create plays with the ball in their hand. And when you talk about a guy who is one of the bigger guards at his position, can pass to the level he does, can create with the ball in his hand to the level he does out of pick and roll, and can also make the right play and is one of the best tough shot makers in this draft class, the potential is through the roof. And with some of the processing I've seen from Keaton Wagler, I would really love to see him as like a second side creator, maybe playing next to a guard. And this is what I say, he can be a combo guard. And what I mean by combo guard is you can be a shooting guard next to a primary ball handler, but also take primary ball handler responsibilities and not lose a lot of value because of his play and pick and roll. Like I said, being one of the best pull-up shooters in this draft class, being able to shoot off the catch to the level that he does, and being able to gain advantages off of your threat of driving off aggressive closeouts. We always talk about how shooters should be able to extend advantages by being able to put the ball on the floor and create once you have a really sloppy closeout or a really aggressive closeout to where there's always going to be a threat of you driving past the closeout, but you can also hesitate back to a 3, and that's something Keaton Wagler does a lot. When you have a shooter, or when you have the talent of shooting and ball handling mixed together, there's always going to be that threat of you driving past the defender. So he's always able to create space off of a jab step or just like a snatchback dribble to where he can create a really good look from 3. As far as off-ball stuff, and we're going to talk about the off-ball stuff a little bit more in a second. What I really look at Keaton Wagler's game and say like the off-ball play is theirs because he's already a really good catch and shooter, whether it's just spot up opportunities or quick like flare screens to where he can relocate to the wing a little bit and just catch a 3. And he has the NBA range as well. He's shooting a lot of deep 3s where it's like 2 to 3 steps behind the 3-point line, and I think that provides serious value. Now, there are 2 really big weaknesses that I look at with Keaton Wagler's game that I can say maybe I don't put him in that superstar tier just yet, and that's really the isolation scoring and the off-ball activity. Illinois runs a lot of sets where their centers are posting up. I know it was one game that I just watched where it looked like the Illinois centers were posting up a lot, and it just didn't look like Keaton Wagler was as active off the ball, whether it's cutting to the basket, trying to relocate. It looks like he was just standing there. And that could have a lot to do with the scheme that Illinois is running. Maybe Keaton Wagler's not supposed to be moving around because the centers aren't as good passers as you would want them to be for there to be a lot of off-ball action. But even when other ball handlers have the ball, I just don't see much of an off-ball action to where I can truly say like this guy's going to be one of the better off-ball players. But when I do see him shoot off the catch, when I do see him shoot off motion, it gives me some belief that he can be a really good off-ball player in the future because of the threat of closing out while also becoming one of the best shooters in the NBA. And the other thing is the isolation scoring. Like when I look at Keaton Wagler, when he's not generating those mismatches on the perimeter and he's going up against somebody that maybe matches his size and has a more athletic advantage over him, there's just a lot of really tough shots that are being made, or there's just a lot of really ugly possessions where he's not able to create an open look as consistently. He does not have the quickest first step. He does have a solid handle. He does have really good shooting ability. So that's always going to give you a leg up. But when you're going against, which is going to happen, you're going to go against a lot of defenders that are extremely athletic and extremely physical. How are you going to be able to combat that? And that's what makes me say he's more of a combo guard than just a pure point guard, because I don't believe he has that extreme advantage creation out of isolation looks without mismatch attacking centers on the perimeter, which is not a bad thing. That's not always a bad thing. That may just be a limitation to his game, because it's specifically downhill. When it's in the perimeter and he's looking to get that three-point shot going, I see him getting a lot of really open looks just off of using that driving threat as something that can create open looks for himself. It's not necessarily the three-point shot, like I said, being the factor of him not being able to create open looks. It's just the fact of him getting downhill, him trying to create really good looks around the rim, really good looks around mid-range. It's just really tough to do when he's going against somebody that matches his physical profile and may have an advantage over him athletically. And that's why I would love to see him play off the ball a little bit more. Like we saw this with Nate Ament earlier in the season. It was clear as day that he could not take on those on-ball responsibilities. Now, Keaton Wagler is far better than him with on-ball responsibilities, but you would love to see a higher potential get tapped into if he was having more sets ran for him off the ball, because he's one of the best shooters in this draft class. And this is why I maybe would want more of like a lead guard to play with him, because he'll be so good at those second side attacks when the lead guard shifts the defense over in his direction. Like imagine you have a lead guard that can create, or we'll talk about this in a second, a Cooper Flag that's willing to put the downhill pressure on the defense play after play, and Keaton Wagler's on the opposite wing ready to attack a closeout or ready to spray from three. That's going to be really hard to guard in the future. Or maybe just like a really good post big that can pass out of the post to where you can get slot cuts from him, or you can have pin downs on the second side ran for him to where he can get spot up opportunities, or he could drive to the basket. Those are a multitude of things that I feel as though you can use to get going an off-ball game for Keaton Wagler, a more active off-ball game for him. Because I do say this, like guys with slower first steps, I don't think that just goes away. Like that's not something where I look at it and say, that's going to get better at the NBA level. And again, that's not a bad thing. If you're not like consistently winning in isolation, that's not a bad thing, especially with Keaton Wagler being the shooter that he is. That makes up for so much of the isolation one-on-one creation when he's going up against players with his physical profile. The shooting makes life so much easier for him because teams are always going to play the shooting. They're always going to play the shooting, and that's going to open up more driving lanes. That's going to open up more opportunities to make good reads, to have really good reads, and to shift the defense consistently, because if you're moving off the ball and it even looks like you're about to get a good attempt up, teams are going to overcommit to that, and you're going to have easy driving lanes to where he's already shown he can make those interior passes or those kick out passes to properly assess the team with good looks that they need. And this is why the three teams I have mentioned for the teams I would like to see Keaton Wagler go to, number one, the Sacramento Kings. I think Sabonis will be a really good passing big or just screening big that can set up really good looks for Keaton Wagler. I understand that the Sacramento Kings are one of the worst organizations in the NBA, but I truly do love the on-court pairing of a Keaton Wagler and a Domantas Sabonis. I don't think they're going to force him to create those one-on-one looks as much, especially if they still have Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan. Like, I just don't think they're going to force him to try and get those on-ball reps as much as you would want him to. And then just like I talked about with Cooper Flag, Cooper Flagg is also a really good downhill threat who is a solid passer as well. And I think Keaton Wagler is going to be somebody that's going to thrive off of those down looks that Cooper Flagg can set for him. Or you can even run like a two-man game or an inverted pick and roll with Keaton Wagler as the screener and Cooper Flagg as the ball handler trying to guard that pick and pop. That's going to be really hard to do in the future as well. With the amount of defenders around Keaton Wagler that would be in Dallas, you have guys like Najee Marshall, Derek Lively was a solid defender, Daniel Gafford is a solid defender, PJ Washington is a solid defender, Cooper Flagg is a solid defender as well. You're going to have another ball handler in Cooper Flagg. If Kyrie Irving returns next season for the Dallas Mavericks, you're going to have him as well. I think Keaton Wagler will be really good for this Dallas Mavericks team. He provides shooting, he provides the extra ball handling, and you can get really creative with how Cooper Flagg and Keaton Wagler fit next to each other. So we're about like 2/3 into the season and Keaton Wagler is pretty high up in my big board. That's still going to be coming out pretty soon, by the way. It's going to be very intriguing to see what Illinois does next month and see how Keaton Wagler plays. I'm going to be covering him much more as the draft process goes along because I'm still considering going to go see him play live because if you guys don't know, I live in Illinois. It's going to be very interesting to see what Keaton Wagler does in the future. With all the upside that he possesses, with all the shooting potential that he has, all the mismatch attacking he can have on the perimeter, I don't think there's a world where he's going to be a bad NBA player. I've seen some things on Twitter like this guy's going to get a GM fired. I just think it's all about perspective. Like, I don't think a lot of teams are drafting for their guy. Like, a lot of teams, like, don't get me wrong. Yes, there are teams that need a guy. Washington needs a guy. Brooklyn needs a guy. Utah needs a guy. I think the Pelicans could use another guy. But the Pacers, if a Pacers team is like, yeah, we're not drafting for a guy, but if we get a guy, that'd be great. I think Keaton Wagler would be great in Indiana. There's a lot of teams that just don't need a guy. The Dallas Mavericks don't need a guy. You know, like, I think it's all about the perspective when you're drafting a Keaton Wagler. I don't think you're drafting Keaton Wagler to be the savior of a franchise. I think there's only 3, maybe 4 players that should be drafted with that type of expectation. When you're drafting a guy like Keaton Wagler, you're drafting a really good player who can probably be a second best offensive player on a really good team if he projects out to what I think he can. He's going to be somebody who's going to be a very efficient shooter, somebody that has extreme upside as an off-ball player, somebody that makes really good decisions, has really good passing upside, really good pick and roll play, and one of the best pull-up three-point shooters in this draft class. So, ladies and gentlemen, how high up do you guys have Keaton Wagler in your big boards? Do you have him top 5? Do you have him top 10? Do you have him top 15? Are you just now hearing about Keaton Wagler now that I made a video about him? Personally, I think Keaton Wagler can become an all-star. I also think he could be a really good starter in this league. It just depends what situation he's in and how he's developed. It just depends on what situation he's in and how he's developed. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you guys like this type of content, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Make sure you guys follow me on Twitter at ATBSports1. Make sure you guys follow me on Instagram at @thebuzzersports_, and make sure you guys follow me on TikTok at @thebuzzerent. We are going to be doing much more player evaluations or smaller player evaluations before the season wraps up and we get into our full player evaluations. So make sure you guys subscribe because you guys are going to want to stick around for this. And with all that being said, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.